Hello, I'm Professor Margaret Rogers Van Coops, and I'd like to talk to you today on my show, The Truth, about how we are misinformed all the time. We've seen on the news that people are commenting on things they've heard, they're giving their points of view, and of course, when we listen to many people all giving their points of view, and we find controversy within all those points of view, then we begin to wonder just what is the truth? Who do we believe? Who do we work with to make sure that we get something good happening? Well, it's a bit difficult right now, isn't it? Because number one, the planets are all in positions where they create controversy. What does that mean? It means that in one breath, you might think you know exactly what you're talking about, and in an instant, a blink of an eye, suddenly have an emotional feeling that something you're talking about doesn't feel right. And then, when you're not sure what you think and what you feel, they don't agree, then you're in discord. When you're in discord, you're not sure what to believe. Well, this is going on all over the planet right now. And the reason it's happening is it's the end of the Piscean Age, the Great Piscean Age, that is, and the beginning of the opening up, foundationing stones of the Great Aquarian Age. I've talked a lot about this all the time, but what is it doing to us as individuals? How do we know that what we're talking about is reality? How do we know that what our politicians are saying is really the truth? How do we know how much money there is in a government anywhere in this world? How do we know who's hoarding things when they should be selling them and sharing? There's so much. We could go on with lists forever and ever and ever. So where are we at? In a sense, the planets are saying doubt, do doubt, check, go sort things out, talk to people who are in the know, learn, understand the facts, get down to the real nitty gritty of circumstances, and in some way come to know in your mind exactly what the truth is. Now, the truth might hurt because sometimes we find out stuff that we think is going to kind of clear our way and make everything happy and wonderful. And then we find out, no, it's actually the opposite. It's taking us downhill. But don't be upset about that because sometimes we have to go downhill in order to face the reality that what we're doing is actually the wrong thing to do for us. Now, of course, when we move from a great age into a new great age, we have so many previous ideas of circumstances that we've seen, and so we believe those things have to continue. But the truth is, when change comes, change is change. And however slight it may be a tiny little thing that you think nothing of, but it is the beginning of a bigger change. So change grows, just like we grow emotionally and mentally in our experiences. So if you think back, you'll see that you've changed your focus, you've changed your point of view, you've changed your attitude about how you see yourself in the world. You've changed your perception of how the world sees you. You could go on forever thinking about perceptions in various forms. And of course, if we talk about politics, well, we've got 101 people who just love to be there and be in the middle of sorting out everything. And of course, they have 1,001 ideas. And when you get all these people with ideas coming together, they're all in competition with one another as to whether this is right or not right to do. And of course, sometimes some of the most, shall we say, lucrative and most sensible projects get, shall we say, hidden under the table because people are not ready for a dramatic change. But when you move from a great age, Piscean age, an example here, to the great Aquarian age, you can't stay with the same consciousness. It's like saying if you went to live in India for a number of years, you would learn the ways of the Indians, and then you would say of their ways that there are good and bad parts in them, and you would take the parts that you like and you would incorporate them into whatever you're doing in your life. Well, in a way, the politics of the world have to do the same thing. We have to all look at one another and see the way we believe and think, not about religion, that was the Piscean age. This is about philosophy, theology, in the sense of purpose, direction, evolvement, growth. So if you're wanting change in your life and you want people to really see you, hear you, feel you, touch you, then you have to be able to do that with others. You see, the Aquarian age begins with knowing your neighbor, knowing your family, rearing your children with the concepts of a modern time, not the history of the Piscean age, but of today and of the looking forward into the future. Young ones today are in school and they've been talking, addressing political people, saying, we don't want this. We want a different world. But the adults are not listening yet because they're still holding on to what was. I suggest that some of you who are older should start listening to the young ones because they have ideas. They're inventive. They're creative. There are, for example, children who are already creating things to clean up the messes that we've put into the oceans. There are other people, for example, collecting hair from all hairdressers all over the place to make hair mats, which will then be used to absorb oil and get it off the birdies and the animals that get soaked with it. Isn't that a wonderful idea? You see, these younger people have these ideas, whereas the older generations don't. It wasn't part of their way to think about cleaning up this earth. It's their way to make it a mess. So now we need to realize that if we are going to support these young people in their endeavors to change this world, we must stop saying, I remember when. They don't remember. They don't want to know. They're not curious. They want to know about the future. They want to know about now. They want to hear what they can do to feel they're in some way valuable to the community. When you gather many children together and you give them an opportunity to do something together, they do find a way to integrate. Why? Because their coding from the RNA and the DNA comes not from just family ancestors, but from God. And right now, the energy of the oneness is to transform us from what was into what will be. Now, we can't know what the future will show us exactly, but we can know that if we do the best that we can in our own way, in our own circle, with the people that live locally to us, then we can begin to sit down and listen to their ideas and to listen with an open mind. You want to really say, look, this is my idea. I've written it down even. I'll explain it step by step. I would be grateful if you would listen to me. And when I finish giving the presentation of my idea, I'm open and receptive to all sorts of input. And that input could be to tear it down, to take some parts of it and say that's wonderful while other parts are not so good, or to rave and rant about your idea but seem to have no way to give you support in helping you to bring it forward. Well, we're in stage 1 right now, which means you need to talk to people. Whatever your idea is, talking it aloud helps you to move on with a better idea from the foundation idea that you're beginning with now. When two or three are gathered together, there in the midst am I, said Jesus. Well, where two or three are gathered together, in the midst of us now are many spirits. The ascended masters, they're there to guide us in this change. And so the more we learn to meditate, the more we learn to relax and enjoy what is going on right in our front yard, the more we will be able to look at what we appreciate and what works for us. And then when we have that understanding, we'll begin to realize, hey, it's there in front of us all the time. What we want is been there. We've been talking about it for 100 years, but we haven't done anything about it. So now this is the time to start doing something about it. Well, we have done some things, like we've made solar power and we've got the windmills all over the place. So we're producing more electricity from the sun. But is that enough? The sun is with us for a short time during the day, and at night it's cold. But I'm going to give you a premise that's something new. I've talked about energy before, of sound. Sound is a vibration that echoes. If you go in a cave, you'll hear, if I say my name, Margaret, 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 Margaret. I'm not doing it in a voice, of course. But how many echoes would you hear? Depending on the resonation, reverberation of the cave, you might hear a lot or only one or two times. But that doesn't mean it's not working. That simply means one hasn't learned to tap into the echo, to pick it up, trap it, and use it. So what do we know about sound? Well, you could think of some young man or woman playing a violin, a cello, any string instrument, and what you see once they get into the music very vigorously is that their bow begins to shred, and of course it's made of horse's hair, which is quite strong, but not strong enough to go through hours and hours and hours of friction. However, during the time that the musician is playing, whatever you're hearing, you're thoroughly enjoying, because you're hearing the resonation, the reverberation of friction in an instrument that gives you a pleasant sound. Well, if you can imagine that bow as a ray of light, and if you could analyze that light, as it were, down to sound, friction, and light create heat. So when we find someone who is born with an inspiration for the Aquarian age to make whatever that box is that will sit in everybody's house, making sure that all the sounds that are in the house come together in this little box to give you heat, to give you light, to keep your home warm. In other words, wouldn't that be wonderful? To play your favorite music and know at the same time you're heating your house. Or perhaps you're in hospital and you're in need of treatments, and all the energy of that whole building is there because of sound. I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to be. I'm a medium. I hear the words, they tell me what to say, and I say them. Sometimes I directly channel the words and give them to you. But today I'm just talking because I want you to understand that I'm 80 years old. I've come through 80 years of watching the peoples of the world rise up in umbrage, anger, in war, to others rising up with new changes, alterations in the way we do things. If I had been led to live as I was born in 1942 in a wartime Europe, how different would my life have been if the Germans had won? We don't know. We could speculate, but we could say it surely would be different. So, in the same with the Aquarian age, we have to say that the children of today are the future, not the seniors, not the mothers, but the children now being born. I wrote a book called Discover Your Baby Spirit. It tells you the 5 different types of children that are born. When you're pregnant, you can see and know and hear by reading that book what kind of child you're going to have, whether they are a hero, a star, an indigo, a crystal, or a liquid crystal child. Now, you might say, why would we categorize them? Well, we need various types of people in this world to integrate to make this world change, as we have indeed had in past histories. So some people are warriors, some people are sages, some people are artisans, some people are kings, some people are priests, and some people are slaves. And we all have our job to do under the archetype of the soul structure coding, which you can also read about in my book, The Rejection Syndrome. When you read that, you'll realize there's so much more to you than what you think there is at the moment. So if we can tap into our soul vibration, what would we see? We would see that we are in friction. If you think about your body, your blood system going round, your heart beating, your nerves twitching, and so on, all of that is friction. You are walking across a room and your pants are swishing or your hair is swinging around. It makes a sound. You might not hear it yourself, but others sitting nearby would look up. Who's that walking by? If it's an animal, they might even bark at you because they hear you better. So you see, listening to your own vibration, your own voice, the sounds that you make when you move across the room will entice you, hopefully, to think about the fact that sound is the next revolution in how we are going to heal ourselves, as well as to heat our homes, run industry, communicate on television and so on, and much more that we don't know about yet, to run our cars, to do away with trains the way we know them and planes the way we know them, and to have vehicles that can fly like spaceships. Anything we can imagine is a reality. Anything that is a reality has been in some place, somewhere throughout the cosmos. It has existed. Nothing is new. It's only new to us as we discover something that's existed for eons of time. When we look back at our history right now, there's a tremendous amount of archaeological, if I can say the word, archaeological research is going on with digs and things. And they found some amazing things that people are like, wow. But for me, it wasn't a wow. It was, well, I was waiting for people to know it. For example, the Moan faces on Easter Islands. When everybody was saying there's just the heads, I was saying, no, there's the bodies too. Now they found them. And then they were saying about pyramids in other places, and now they found them, including in the Antarctica. So you see, we're starting to realize that this earth has shifted many times before, and it will shift again. And when it does, oceans will rise up over land, and land that was high will become different land, somewhere where we can maybe grow trees that we can't grow trees at the moment because there's no soil there. But given time and tides and winds and all these things that can happen over eons of time, this world could be very different by the time 3,250 years have gone by for the Aquarian Age. And by then, what may be India may be another country. We don't know how we will change the way we see ourselves in this world, but we do know that we must change. If we do not change, we'll all die. We have to adapt to the ways of the future. So don't argue, don't get upset when people say to you, what you talk about is history. It's not that they're devaluing your life and the things that you've done, like you're serving in wars and things. They're not devaluing you, they appreciate you. But what they are saying is we must move forward so that we don't have any more wars. We must move forward so that everyone has heat in their home, everyone has food on their plate, and everyone has education. This is to come. Computers have given us a connection to the world. Our phone has given us a connection to the world. There is so much that we can now unify with, but we're waiting for one most important thing, the discovery of how sound is trapped and used as a new energy source to give us all the comforts that we need in every country throughout the world. My heart skips for joy when Spirit told me this, because I've moved through the ages of bad things and I've seen them all. Agopaveni was where all the children were covered by slag from a coal mine dump. I was having that nightmare as a teenager for weeks before it happened. Coming out of it, dreaming it, thinking it, feeling it, and when it finally happened, I knew what it was. Psychics pick up a lot of things. Another one I picked up was the two towers coming down when I was there in 1985. I told everyone about it. I knew it would happen. I didn't quite get the facts right. I saw the planes, but I didn't know it was going to be what it was. But I saw it, and I saw the way those two buildings came down like that together. It broke my soul to see a reality out of a vision. But that's how life must be. We must see negative visions in order to realize we don't want that to happen again. We've had enough of those psychic visions of failure, loss, fear, insecurity, instability, and so on. It's time for us now to have a positive attitude, and the Aquarian Age gives us it by beginning to listen to one another. No more conflict, no more battles between local groups on street corners. Instead, ask one another, how can we unify? How can we work together? How can we make this area a better area for us all to live in? How can we provide for us all? How can we all get education? How can we all get money to buy food? Well, you might not need money eventually because with the science and the way things are going, we'll probably not need paper money anymore. We'll have cards and discs, and we'll be paid by using the cards and discs. Yes, everybody's seen this, everybody's known this, they've made movies about it. But are you ready for it? Are you ready to adapt and change? Because if you don't, you'll be left behind. That's the truth today. If you do not see another way to move forward, if you hold on to what was and try to keep it, you will suffer, and that will be your truth. And you will tell everyone, nothing is better, it's horrible, I hate this world, and so on. And your umbrage will be received as ridiculous because the young ones will not listen because they're programmed to change this world. And that is the final truth, that no matter what we say and do now, in the years to come, especially in the next 50 years, radical changes will happen on this planet. And we must learn to fly high, to go with it, to feel the glory of transition, of rebirthing of this planet we love so much that we call Earth and home. I'd love to hear from you and your point of view on this. If you'd like to write underneath what you think about the change and the idea that the new energy source comes from sound, I'd love to hear from you. Take care. Be well. Blessings to you all.